Hello and welcome to episode 28 of Massalia Tales. On the last episode we saw Cretheus destroying the remains of the slave uprising near Octoduron, so he finished them off, taking casualties himself but winning a victory. Gelon was then recruited into the Timouchoi using a massive cash sum to bribe him in, finally giving the Timouchoi a chance to get some real influence now that we have a big hero on our side. The Sequani decided to counter-invade Vesontio, but Gelon was all too eager to attack them, seeing they had fortified themselves, but they sallied out of their fort to attack him, ruining his plan to besiege them inside and actually inflicting heavy casualties on them, but eventually he managed to surround them and destroy them using their inferior morale. A similar thing happened when he pushed on to punish them by attacking the Sequani's final province. They stood in a fort battle just outside their town, which ended up taking the battle outside due to all of their reinforcements coming in. The battle was very messy and Gelon again took a lot of losses facing the enemy's heavy troops, but eventually defeated them by exploiting their inferior morale and our increased maneuverability compared to them. Now let's continue. Before the sun had set on the victorious heralds of Massalia, Gelon found himself listening to the stern commands from Climere regarding how to treat the Sequani people. She proposed to him a plan that would allow them to make peace with the survivors, a move of mercy designed both to please the Celtic population of the Timouchoi holdings and to heighten the fragile image of Gelon as a righteous man. Despite it clashing with his own goals, Gelon was sound enough to see that stamping on another rebellious province might not be wise for his survival as a soldier-politician. The decision was already made as the final blows were struck. Gelon has just finished his heroic victory against those Sequani troops, mainly the garrison army coming from the town itself. He is going to wipe out all those he captured in order to make the next part of this battle as easy as possible, because immediately after this fight he's going to have to fight the garrison army again, and now that most of them have been executed, the garrison army is just one squad of spearmen, not even at full strength. The balance bar gives us quite a clear advantage, so I can auto-resolve this fight with no hassle whatsoever. So that is the final Sequani stronghold. Now I have to essentially decide what to do with them as a faction. I wasn't going to occupy their territory because holding it would cause some serious public order issues both here and in Vesontio because they're different provinces, and it would mean I'm not getting much wealth from either of them because they're both in chaos, so I was going to focus on just one. I decided I would subjugate the province. This means the Sequani stay alive but as my client state, paying me tribute and forcing them to join any of my wars. This works quite nicely because it gives a nice power trip to Gelon, who'll be able to lord it up over the tribe that caused him so much hassle, and it means he'll be improving his relations with the Celtic people because he is seen as being one who will not push a grudge to the death of his enemies. They have some Marcomanni rebels in their territory immediately, but this is no longer Gelon's problem. This territory is independent. It doesn't matter what happens as long as they keep paying us money. So Gelon can just fall back to friendly territory and now begin regenerating his troops. This means that Massalia is now finally not at war with anyone. We have stabilized all of our borders. We're at peace with every faction that we know about. It's finally time to start building up our power, consolidating our strength, and seeing how long the peace lasts as Massalia forms itself into a coherent republic. The Sequani, now styled as the Gallic Confederation, are on the verge of defeat, but they still have a massive army on their side, the Sons of Brennus, who march towards the Heralds of Massalia under Gelon. He falls back towards the recently captured settlement of Ubersis, where Cretheus' army, the Hands of the Timouchoi, are waiting to defend against the Sequani attack. The balance bar is really far in our favour, although we'll see in a moment the auto-resolve isn't particularly favourable, so I'm going to do this for myself and show you a couple of highlights. From now on, we're probably not going to see too many battles that are really far in my favour, but I might show you some highlights just so we get some battle footage in the episodes. Let's see if Cretheus' army, the Hands of the Timouchoi, can make a good first appearance on Massalia Tales.
As we all thought, the honour of the Greeks is like a beautiful pillar constructed in a cesspit, a mere sight to please the eyes of those thrown into their death. You all know I was once a man of their ways, a man who they thought would do whatever they said as your leader, while still wearing the beard of an honest man, a feature no Greek can claim. But from the inside, I saw that all we hate about these people is justified tenfold. I saw that to fight for a chance to retain our own part of this world is a duty all true sons of Gaul carry. I saw such womanly weakness in these cowering tyrants, that I knew it would be my own tribe who dealt the righteous blow.
So the Sequani / Gallic Confederation begin their attack, bringing units as weak as armed townsfolk and as strong as these Germanic berserkers, who of course may be able to do heavy damage to Cretheus' troops if left unchecked. The enemy start by attacking in two directions, it seems. One group is quite clearly coming for our defences here on the east part of the town. Cretheus has set up a pike wall. His army is mostly pike troops for its main line, an army inspired by the conqueror Alexander the Great. Behind that wall he has archers, war dogs and peltasts ready to support those troops once the enemy come and get locked in battle with this pike phalanx. So his plan is basically going to be to lock them down, and if the enemy don't totally surround us, we'll be able to go and surround them. Coming in far from the west are a few of Gelon's troops. Even though he had a full army, he can't bring it onto the field because Cretheus' army is backed up by so many tiny garrison units with like 18 men that it's reached the regiment limit for our side. That means the balance bar is actually in the enemy's favour, despite our overall force in this battle being far superior. So the enemy's leading troops come in to engage with the pike phalanx, just as expected here. These light swordsmen are unlikely to do any damage to the phalanx itself. So this formation will hold as long as the enemy don't get too close to my men to engage them in proper melee, where they're relatively weak compared to the enemy's units. So the enemy will then ram their troops against the phalanx. The archers behind are going to have a chance to fire over the top into the enemy formations. Those volleys will do a lot of damage, especially to the light units who aren't wearing armour. You can see these guys getting mown down in a volley of arrows. Very quickly, the arrows will defeat these men. The heavier troops will last much longer, and the arrows are likely to run out before we actually kill all of these men, because there's so many enemy troops on the battlefield today. So the enemy do just throw most of their regiment coming round to the east side into the pike phalanx, which is great for me. The question was what they were going to do with their other troops, and those guys actually turned out to just come right around the town, not go around to attack the west side as I assumed they were going to be, and just come back down in to attack the east. So all of their mainline troops are going to engage against 3 regiments of my pikes, of course leaving a lot of my guys free to do what they want, but putting so much pressure on those pikes that the pike phalanx may not hold. I do have some cavalry sneaking around behind the enemy lines. I can't use them yet because the enemy have so many spears in amongst their forces that I'm not going to get a good opportunity to make a safe attack until the enemy have committed everything. So here we are a bit later. The enemy are indeed committing everything. You can see tons of enemy troops pushing against the pike phalanx, and now in places they're starting to get through, drawing the guys out to fight with their short swords, where the barbarians will have an advantage. Still, a lot of the pike phalanx is holding, as you can see, so that's definitely minimizing the casualties on our sides. The pike phalanx doesn't really inflict casualties on the enemy, so the enemy won't be losing many men to the pikes, but the sustained missile barrage from behind will be killing a lot of them, so we are managing to rout a couple of the smaller enemy units here. They're also, though, starting to rout my missile units because they've got their slingers flanking my position where the archers are, and they destroy one of my regiments very quickly. Those slingers are protected by their general with heavy spears, so from their position I can't quite take them out safely. Of course, those cavalry I showed you earlier are in a perfect position to do it once those heavy spears get out the way. So I'm going to have to let the slingers do their thing until the opportunity arises for me to attack. On the enemy's other rear flank, I've got 2 units of cavalry also hanging about waiting to attack, but the enemy are protecting themselves well with spears, so I can't hit yet. The slingers eventually do become vulnerable. My lancers rush in to attack them. Also, I've got some Gallic medium cavalry coming in to attack another group. Unfortunately, the enemy reacted well to this. They pulled their very heavy spears out of the main engagement to immediately come and attack my cav. This didn't give my cavalry enough time to totally defeat these enemy slingers, so my cavalry are going to be pushed away. I will have to again wait for an opportunity to come back and strike the slingers. All the while, the slingers can attack my men clumped up in the middle of the town as much as they want. You can see there I'm running a very long way away so that the enemy doesn't chase me and gets tempted to go back into the main fight. So eventually my cav are able to return to fight with the enemy slingers, but the enemy slingers are actually really good in melee, it seems. They held on for a really long time, fighting for several minutes against my medium cav, going down to wavering and coming back to stable again. These Gallic local slingers are apparently extremely good. Now you can see the enormous size of the enemy force pressing against this pike phalanx. The phalanx's integrity has dropped yet further now. A lot of it is now just fighting in melee, where it's going to be taking casualties. I did start to witness my pikemen fall, especially as they exhausted from this long engagement holding off the enemy. So it's really getting to the point where I need to make a decisive attack on the enemy's rear, because the enemy could break through, and because I have all of my units devoted to going to flank attacks, at least I will in a moment, that means my centre is actually very weak. So here are all of those units getting ready for their flank attack. They're setting up a pike phalanx essentially behind the enemy formation, and then we're just going to gradually inch that pike phalanx forward to start crushing the enemy with pike phalanxes on both sides. As I said, the pike phalanxes don't do all that much damage, but being attacked in the rear and the fact that they can't defeat my men will exhaust and demoralise the enemy and cause them to rout. And if they rout while surrounded by pike phalanxes, that will definitely cause the vast majority of them to be killed. I also have some regular hoplites that I can bring in to attack other parts of the enemy's rear. So they slam in to engage, set up a hoplite phalanx and start engaging with the enemy's medium and heavy troops there. The pike phalanx is pushing forward, but it's being broken up by the fact that the enemy have these sparsely formulated berserkers just standing around behind their line, and there are trees in the way. But they're managing to make contact with the backs of enemy regiments, which is causing their morale to drop. Basically, all of these enemy units are now starting to lose morale. They're down to yellow. You can see here a whole enemy group has been destroyed against the pike phalanx, a huge pile of bodies, a testament to the power of this pike phalanx, or perhaps a testament to the missiles that were being thrown and fired over the top of this pipeline. So things are starting to go well. We have taken casualties at a rate of about 30% among the pike phalanx, so it's thinning out, losing integrity as I said, but I've got some citizen hoplites now forming another line behind it to reinforce. Gelon and his cavalry are coming in to inspire the men, and the fact that the enemy are surrounded means that in a slow grind I think I'm going to gain the advantage, especially as my fresh hoplites attack the enemy's exhausted heavy troops from behind there. They should get quite a lot of kills and really demoralize the enemy. And soon enough, as Cretheus looks on from just behind the line, the enemy starts to break all over their huge group. Some of the units did stay behind, in particular General's unit and some guys on the enemy's left flank, but most of them are now trying to escape. Our pipeline is now thoroughly safe. The pressure has been taken off. The few light troops remaining attacking it won't last very long, and the guys who are trying to escape are escaping right into that pike phalanx as expected, so they're going to take huge casualties. I've got cavalry filling the gap to make sure they can't get around that phalanx, and overall the enemy is now in huge trouble, so the remaining enemy troops fall back shortly. Cretheus unleashes the war dogs to come out from underneath the pike phalanx to ravage the enemy's heavy units as they fall back, and trying to focus on taking out these very heavy spears, one of the enemy's best regiments, making sure they get thoroughly depleted in this battle, because the enemy are probably going to have enough survivors that will have to fight another battle after this. But the war dogs definitely do the job right. We destroy the enemy, and then my lancers come in to take revenge on the enemy's very heavy spears, definitely going to do a lot of damage to them. It's a decisive victory for Cretheus' forces and a few of Gelon's who just about joined the battle by the time it was over. The pike phalanx strategy worked particularly well and suited our defenders' advantage, and the Sequani / Confederation are almost gone. So let's see what the damage we actually did was. A lot of the enemy did survive, but a lot of them were defeated. They lost over half of their troops, but still a substantial number remain. Those who were captured are going to return to their homelands only as slaves. The survivors fall back to a nearby hillside. So it's now up to us to destroy them and secure Ubersis permanently. We're not going to put up with any Sequani meddlings from now on. So I'm going to move out some forces to attack them. This time using Gelon and the Heralds of Massalia to lead the attack, with Cretheus coming in as a support army, especially because Gelon's forces are in very good condition. The balance spells hugely in our favour. It's time to wipe out the threat to Ubersis once and for all, and that pretty much wipes out the threat to Massalia. We now have good relations with everybody. We're trading with almost every faction that we know about. Overall, the chance of our territory being violated by a hostile faction is now very low. We have essentially achieved a stable Massalian republic here in Central Europe, and now we're going to be able to reap yet more spoils of this, as I can enjoy a large income and improve public order in my domain to the point when I have huge tax and growth bonuses. The Gallic Confederation does actually live on, because they were a confederation of the Sequani and another faction that used to be called the Gallic Confederation, which used to be my enemy, the Arverni. They have forces hanging about in various locations. They have some there up near Denmark. They also have some apparently just off the western coast of Britannia, who are the faction leaders of the Confederation. They're not going to accept peace, but of course they're not a threat to me, so that's fine. One year after the assassination attempt on Gelon, he is healthy enough to return to politics as a statesman, which means I can now potentially give him a new army to command. It's the spring of 244 BC, and the Timouchoi have decided it's time for Massalia to expand. We need to capture any settlement within 6 turns. But of course we're not at war with anyone, and we don't have any real obvious target. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get myself in with the Carthaginians. They've been improving their domain over the last few years as well, and they are much more powerful than us according to the general balance of power. So it seems like a good idea to get on their good side. All my other allies aren't as powerful as the Carthaginians. The Carthaginians are at war with the Lusitani, a faction who are apparently about the same in terms of power as us. But of course, if we team up with the Carthaginians, it should be a fairly easy war, a chance to take some foreign territory that may prove lucrative, and I can use this as a diplomatic lever to get myself in with the Carthaginians. We're already on quite good terms, but we're not on alliance level terms. The Lusitani refused to trade with me, which was the last straw as far as I was concerned, because pretty much everyone else is trading with me, as I said. So that is a sign of hostile intent. We're going to use that as our justification for an attack. Eusebius, standing right by Massalia, is first into the ships, eager to lead the attack, knowing that the Timouchoi will gain too much influence if it's them who strikes the first blow. blow. So he will take his forces over towards the Lusitani lands. We're going to leave the heralds of Massalia behind as a guard for our territory in case anything happens. Gelon will no longer lead that army as a result. They're just going to patrol Ubersis to improve public order. We've also got forces nearby under Cretheus, who is going to be able to come and take part in this battle. Cretheus is of course eager to get new conquests to his name, as he is effectively now competing with Gelon to become the leading member of the Timouchoi, and his army is more powerful and he has more initiative to do so. So he's going to rush out, go out through Genua towards the enemy territory with the hands of the Timouchoi in transport ships. The Lusitani do have a small fleet that could interfere with my movements, but it appears to be depleted, and there are local forces belonging to the Carthaginians who should be able to help me out with them, plus Homer can easily take them if they attempt to challenge the Daemons crossing. So we go to the diplomacy table. I offer joining the Lusitanian war with Carthage in exchange for defensive alliance. You'll see here that the chance is only moderate, so it only just about tips the balance in terms of that being a good deal for Carthage, because of course they are so much more powerful than me, than a defensive alliance isn't in their advantage. But they do accept the offer, so this is a fantastic increase to our security, which was already quite high. We're really in with the Carthaginians. We now together completely dominate the Western Mediterranean. There are big Eastern empires who could challenge us, but locally we are going to be a completely dominant coalition. So the war has begun. I'm at war with Lusitani. I may need to move through Sestani territory to attack them, so it's a shame I didn't take all those military access deals from ages ago that they offered. The Lusitani have quite a lot of forces on the border nearest to me, so the obvious points of attack for me are well guarded. I can't move through the Sestani lands, so I thought, well, I'll go back to them and see if this time they will accept military access, but apparently they're quite angry with me for siding with the Carthaginians and going to war with the Lusitani, so they could end up being dragged into this, which would be a threat to Massalia. It wouldn't be the first time the Sestani have raided north to attack our core provinces, so I'm going to have to be very careful and leave ample defences behind as my expedition to found a new Massalian colony on the end of the Iberian Peninsula just begins. And what better man to lead those new forces I'll need than Gelon? We'll see how this all goes next time. In his quiet year, Gelon oversaw the construction of a lavish new meeting chamber for the Timouchoi, nicknamed the Peak of Olympus. From this new seat, he planned to make sure that his good name was kept in the minds of the Massalian people, while his political rivals were focused on their new military campaign. He knew that as much glory as they would gain in Iberia, the true adoration of the people was to be gained by defending the city itself. That meant the Sestani had to offer their oaths to their brethren and attack the tempting prize Gelon planned to lay out before them.